The House will come to order. The Pledge of Allegiance this morning will be led by Patrick Turner Gilman from Homeschooled and Hugo Schubert from Asbury Elementary in Denver.
Please join us in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Cole, please take the roll.
Representatives Becker, Buck, Buckner, Conti, Coram, Court, Del Grosso. Absent. Dorr, Duran.
Excused.
Duran excused. Everett, Exum, Fields, Fisher, Foote, Garcia, Gardner, Giroux, Janal, Hamner, Holbert, Hollinghorst.
Absent.
Absent. Present. Representative Hollinghorst present. Humphrey, Joshi, Kagan, Kraft-Tharp, Labuda, Landgraf, Lawrence, Lepsock, Lee, May, McCann, McLaughlin, McNulty, Melton, Representative Melton, Mitch Bush, Moreno, Murray, Navarro, Nordberg, Pabon, Representative Pabon, Peniston, Pedersen, Primavera, Priola, Rankin, Rosenthal, Ryden, Representative Ryden, Sane, Salazar, Schaefer, Scott, Singer, Sonnenberg. It's here somewhere. Stevens. Excused. Swam. Zabo. Tyler. Vigil. Waller. Representative Waller.
Waller? There he is over to the side.
Williams excused. Wilson. Wright. Young. Representative Young. What? Present. Speaker Ferrandino.
There he is.
I got you. Thanks. Yeah.
What are we at? 62. With 62 members present, 3 excused, a quorum is present. Representative Buckner.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the reading of the Journal of April the 17th be dispensed with and that it be approved as corrected by the Chief Clerk.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no? The ayes have it. The motion is adopted. Members, please return to your desks for consideration of a memorial. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to proceed out of order for consideration of House Joint Memorial 1001.
Seeing no objection, the House will proceed out of order for consideration of House Joint Memorial 1001. Madam Majority Leader, do you want to suspend before we go into the memorial?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to suspend the rules to hear from governors of the state of Colorado.
The House will, seeing no objection, the House will suspend the rules so that we later on will be able to hear from current and former governors of our state. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of the House Joint Memorial 1001.
HJM 1001 by Representatives Rankin and Ferrandino, also Senator Baumgardner, memorializing former Governor John Vanderhoof.
Representative Rankin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move House Joint Memorial 1001 and ask that it be read at length.
Whereas our respected former colleague, John Vanderhoof, a past member of the Colorado House of Representatives and former governor of Colorado, departed this life on September 19, 2013, at the age of 91. And whereas John D. Vanderhoof was born on May 27, 1922, in Rocky Ford, Colorado, to Roy E. and Irene Vanderhoof, and later moved to Fort Collins. And whereas Governor Vanderhoof attended Glendale College in Glendale, California, after graduating from Fort Collins High School. And whereas Governor Vanderhoof enlisted in the Navy in 1942 and graduated from the Navy pilot program in 1943. And whereas as a Navy pilot during World War II, Governor Vanderhoof carried out numerous fighter missions and was part of the first aircraft to attack the island of Iwo Jima. And whereas during a mission over Legazpi Bay, Governor Vanderhoof's plane was damaged by ground fire and he was forced to eject from his plane, breaking his leg in the process. And whereas for his service and accomplishments in war, Governor Vanderhoof received the Distinguished Flying Cross, 2 Navy Crosses, and 3 Purple Hearts. And whereas Governor Vanderhoof requested a transfer to Glenwood Springs to recover from the injuries he sustained. And whereas after his rehabilitation, Governor Vanderhoof decided to make Glenwood Springs his permanent home, starting Van's Sporting Goods store and also participating in the opening of Glenwood Independent Bank and the Bank of Glenwood. And whereas his interest in community politics led Governor Vanderhoof to run for the Colorado House of Representatives in 1950. And whereas after winning the seat, Governor Vanderhoof would go on to serve the state in many capacities over the course of 25 years, including Minority Leader, Majority Leader, Speaker of the House, Lieutenant Governor, and Governor. And whereas as a member of the House of Representatives from 1950 to 1970, Governor Vanderhoof served as chair of the Game and Fish Committee and the Business Affairs Committee. And whereas in 1970, he was elected Lieutenant Governor with then Governor John Love. And whereas after Governor Love left office to join the Nixon administration, John Vanderhoof became the 37th Governor of Colorado on July 16, 1973. And whereas after retiring from politics in 1975, Governor Vanderhoof relocated to Grand Junction and remained involved in community efforts, becoming the president of Club 20, a nonpartisan organization dedicated to uniting and promoting the Western Slope. And whereas for his dedication and service, Club 20 created the John D. Vanderhoof Award to honor citizens for outstanding service and dedication to Western Colorado. And whereas his decades of service to his community and to Colorado made Governor Vanderhoof a highly respected public servant, citizen, and friend. And whereas it is fitting that we, the members of the 69th General Assembly, pay tribute to the dedicated service of Governor John Vanderhoof and express our deep regret and sorrow occasioned by his death. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the House of Representatives of the 69th General Assembly of the State of Colorado, the Senate concurring herein, that in the death of John Vanderhoof, the people of the State of Colorado have lost a dedicated public servant and outstanding citizen, and that we, the members of the 69th General Assembly, do hereby extend our deep and heartfelt sympathy to the members of his family and pay tribute to a man who served his state well and faithfully. Be it further resolved that copies of this joint memorial be sent to Governor Vanderhoof's sons Bruce Vanderhoof and Tom Craig, and daughters Linda Vanderhoof, Cindy Eppel, Kathy LaPlante, and Nancy Guccini.
Representative Rankin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Please be seated, members. I'm honored to be the sponsor of this memorial, and the privilege comes because I represent Glenwood Springs, where a young soldier came, a highly decorated young soldier, came home to heal from his wounds and decided to make Glenwood Springs his home, became one of its leading citizens, served many years here and as the governor, as we'll hear, as we've heard. And I'm struck by talking to the family members that Governor Vanderhoof, when he came home at night, talked about the things that he was concerned about, and the two that were on the top of his list were water conservation and alternative fuels. It seems like the issues that we deal with are still with us and still important. So thank you very much for this honor, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem, and I rise, and I'm honored to also carry this with Representative Rankin, Governor Vanderhoof, and more important, former Speaker Vanderhoof was an amazing public servant, and he was, as we heard in the resolution, a successful business owner, a dedicated public servant, an outspoken community leader, and a leader for our state. It's, when you look at his career, both minority leader, majority leader, speaker, lieutenant governor, and governor, someone who really has served our state in a lot of different roles. He was very forward-thinking, as Representative Rankin just mentioned. When you look back at his career, he very much pushed for energy independence and looked for alternative energy solutions like solar power, something we continue to debate. He also worked on prison rehabilitation so that workers would be able to, or people in prison would be able to have jobs after they came out of prison, something we continue to work on now. He will be known and remembered for his ability to work across the aisle with both parties to really move our state forward. Before we hear from some of the former and current governors, unfortunately, former Governor Owens couldn't be with us today, and he asked me to read a statement on his behalf. He wrote, "Governor Vanderhoof served our country and the state well in so many ways over more than 50 years of public service. He contributed greatly to not only the freedom we enjoy today, but also to the great state in which we reside. His legacy lives on in so many ways, even as he has passed away. Americans and Coloradans owe him so much as one of the best of the greatest generations." Governor Bill Owens. Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem. The House will stand in recess so that we may hear from current and former governors. Governor Hickenlooper?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you to all the representatives here for this opportunity to address you, members of the Senate. Former Governor Lamb, former Governor Ritter, and also all the members of the Vanderhoof family, some of whom I've had the pleasure to meet previously as well as today. Governor John Vanderhoof served this state with great distinction and dedication. As Governor Owens said, he lived a life of public service, served in the war, and then in pretty much every elected capacity you can within state government. His record speaks for itself. His commitment to the state, obviously beyond reproach. I remember the first time I went and stopped in to see him when I was first running for governor, and then after I got elected, I stopped to see him again. Tried to stay in touch as well as in the busy job, and we didn't always connect. But he was so gracious to me as someone who was trying to understand. We talked about a couple things. I remember the first time that we met. He illuminated my meager understanding of water and raised it exponentially, and really pointed me in the right direction of some people I could talk to, and how to take his push was I should take a longer view, but with more emphasis on the short term, which I think is always correct. My mother's first husband was shot down twice, was a pilot in World War II, and so we shared that, and he described some of his experience in the war and what that meant to him, and I think what it meant in terms of his public service. He also pushed me with his, and I think it's appropriate to say, his passionate belief in public service, that every citizen has a responsibility to give back in the way that they think is appropriate, that he was determined to make the community, leave the community better off than it was when he found it. And certainly in that regard and in many more, he was truly successful. We went back and looked at his first speech that he gave as governor to the General Assembly, which was on July 16, 1973. And I think his words are as appropriate and timeless today as they were then. We have here in Colorado a splendid record of civic pride and self-sacrifice upon which to build. Let us so conduct ourselves in the days and months ahead that people in the aftertime will say of us all, as one people forged together in government, that we, with God's help, built better than we knew. We should all honor the memory of Governor Vanderhoof by continuing to all work to make Colorado a better place than we found her. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor. Former Governor Ritter.
Mr. Speaker, members of the House, Governors Hickenlooper, Governor Lamb, members of the Vanderhoof family, it's an honor to be here and to be actually in this room and to see all of you again. I had the great fortune of visiting with Governor Hickenlooper or Governor Vanderhoof in person at his place of retirement while I was governor, and had a similar experience where I had discussions with the governor about his time of service, both in the House and then eventually as lieutenant governor and governor. I'm going to talk about that in a minute, but I had another occasion to speak to him while I was governor, and that's when they called me to say, we're looking for the moon rocks. Every state had been given 2 moon rocks, and they went looking for ours in Colorado, and there was only one in the archives. They said, where's the other one? I said, I don't know. I was in 7th grade when this happened. And so I called Governor Vanderhoof, and he said, well, I have it right here. It's on my wall. So I've tried to give it to all these universities that won't take it. The moon rock was worth about $5 million, according to Wikipedia. And so we sent a trooper over and recovered it. He had a grandson who actually took it to show and tell in grade school, the moon rock. And Governor Vanderhoof got a big laugh out of this, that he had been given this and nobody had said, you know, this should go in the state archives. Governor Vanderhoof, in our discussions, very much to echo what Governor Hickenlooper had said, he really had a theme of service in his entire life and then reflected on that. For me, and what was interesting in our probably hour-long conversation when I sat with him in person, it wasn't so much about the fights or the battles he'd lost or even the big campaign he'd lost for governor. It was about the things that he viewed as part of his successes, but the collective success of the state of Colorado while he served in the House and while he served as lieutenant governor and governor. It's interesting, just 2 weeks now, a little over 2 weeks before the end of the session, this is a time where there can be some rancor in the building. And it was interesting to reflect on his life as I prepared this morning to think there wasn't a bit about rancor in his discussion about other people involved in the political world, whether they were Democratic opponents or Democratic colleagues. It was about the successes, and it was about this civility and this way of getting things done that actually he was quite proud of, because he felt Colorado was different and ahead of the pack in so many respects as it related to sort of 20th century governance. So as we commemorate him today and memorialize him, it's important to think about what lessons we should learn from a now deceased former governor who viewed his service as not about sort of the big battles and the issues that could become quite difficult or the rancor that might be involved in that, but view about the sort of civility, the common ground that was able to be found, and the way that he felt he was a part, along with all these other colleagues, of moving this state forward, and how much that kind of service meant to him as opposed to sort of those hard things that could be part of political and public life. So again, thank you to the Vanderhoof family for having this opportunity. Thank you to House members for commemorating this great, great, great public and civil servant. God bless you all.
Thank you, Governor Ritter. Former Governor Lamb.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for the invitation, members of the House, Governor Governor Hickenlooper and Ritter, and the Vanderhoof family. I entered the Colorado legislature in 1967. Johnny Vann was Speaker. And what an awesome presence he was. Not only his service in the Second World War, but just his presence, just his demand for decorum in this House. It hadn't had a particularly good history in the few years before he took over as Speaker. There were fist fights right here on the floor. Doc Lamb, L-A-M-B, carried a gun right in on the floor. A guy named Marshall Quiet was a legislator, and back in those days, the presence of a bill was, if you had the bill, you had its future in its hands. And some people chased Marshall Quiet out on the balcony. He crawled way out on the balcony to get rid of, to keep his bill safe. But Johnny Vann wouldn't have any of that. He wanted this place to work with dignity and decorum. More than once, he cleared the galleries when there were demonstrations up there, wouldn't tolerate any kind of untold disruption. He was an incredible person that wanted to get things done and was fair across the aisle, and I really respected and admired that. I went back and looked the other day at the class of 1967. They're mostly gone. It's incredible. They're mostly gone. You'll see the same thing at some point in your career, some of you. But you look at those pictures and you look at the service, and there was none of them, none of us, that had served his country and served his state with such distinction and such honor. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor Lamb. The House will come back to order. Representative Rankin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. One of the wonderful things about this building is the shared sense of history. If you go out the door and turn right and then left, you'll find a bust, very lifelike bust of Speaker Governor Vanderhoof, and invite you to go look that over. Mr. Speaker, I move that the current roll call of the
One
House...
sec, Representative Rankin. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, is there any objection to taking... Actually, we're doing memorial, so... Mr. Kohler, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Close the machine. With 62 aye votes, 0 no votes, 3 excused, and 0 absent, House Joint Memorial 1001 is passed. Representative Rankin.
Mr. Speaker, I move the current roll call be added as co-sponsors.
Seeing no objection, the current roll call made the co-sponsors of House Joint Memorial 1001. Representative Rankin.
May I introduce the...
Yes, please go ahead and introduce the family.
The legacy of Governor Vanderhoof lives on, very much so, in Glenwood Springs, Denver, and Fort Collins. Let me introduce the family members who are present. First, sister Lois Jean Johnson and her friend John Strahan. Linda Vanderhoof, daughter. Georgia Dye, the governor's niece, and her husband, Terry. Christopher Juniper, stepson. And Clint Johnson, his nephew. Thank you, family members, and thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Representative Rankin. And the House will stand in a brief recess so we can welcome and say hi to our guests. The House will come back to order. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the House proceed out of order for consideration of third reading, final passage of bills.
Seeing no objection, the House will proceed out of order for consideration of third reading of bills, final passage. Mr. Kohler, please read the title to House Bill 1365.
House Bill 1365 by Representatives Hamner and Wilson, Senator Schwartz and Baumgartner concerning junior college boards of trustees in connection with modifying the time within which a junior college board of trustees must select its officers following an election, and directing the Attorney General to serve as a legal advisor to Colorado Mountain College upon request from the Board of Trustees.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move for the adoption of House Bill 1365 on third reading and final passage.
Seeing no discussion, the question for the House is the passage of House Bill 1365 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Kohler, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representatives Conti, Giroux, McNulty, Priola, Wilson, Peniston, and Janal. Close the machine with 62 aye votes, 0 no votes, 3 excused, and 0 absent. House Bill 1365 is passed. Co-sponsors. Close the machine. Mr. Kohler, please read the title to House Bill 1350.
House Bill 1350 by Representative Ferrandino, also Senator Kerr, concerning modifications of criteria for regional tourism projects approved by the Colorado Economic Development Commission through the Colorado Regional Tourism Act in connection with making and reducing appropriations.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move for the adoption of House Bill 1350 on third reading and final passage.
Seeing no discussion, the question before the House is the passage of House Bill 1350 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Kohler, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Close the machine. With 37 aye votes, 25 no votes, 3 excused, and 0 absent, House Bill 1350 is passed. Co-sponsors. Close the machine. Mr. Kohler, please read the title to Senate Bill 123.
Senate Bill 123 by Senator Guzman, also Senator McKagan, concerning the authority of the Peace Officer Standards and Training Board in connection with providing additional rulemaking authority and raising the maximum fee for certification and skills exams, allowing awarding grants to nonprofit organizations, denying certification for municipal violations, and making an appropriation.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move for the adoption of Senate Bill 123 on third reading and final passage.
Seeing no discussion, the question for the House is the passage of Senate Bill 123 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Kohler, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representatives Conti, Mitch Bush, and V. Close the machine. With 36 aye votes, 26 no votes, 3 excused, and 0 absent, House Bill 123 is passed. Senate Bill 123 is passed. Co-sponsors. Close the machine. Mr. Kohler, please read in one breath the title of Senate Bill 161.
Senate Bill 161 by Senators Uleberry and Johnson, also Representative Hollinghorst, concerning modernization provisions of the Uniform Election Code 1992 that ensure voter access for eligible electors in connection with reducing the deadline by which a voter registration application must be submitted. Various certain methods, altering procedures pertaining to national change of address searches, allowing emergency ballots to be obtained for non-medical reasons, amending provisions relating to military and overseas voters, increasing the penalty for providing false residential information, making the interbidding provisions false residential information, new felony offense, making and reducing appropriations.
Would you want another try, Mr. Kohler?
No, thank you.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Mr. Kohler, for a good try. I move for the adoption of Senate Bill 161 on third reading and final passage.
Seeing no discussion, the question for the House is the passage of Senate Bill 161 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Kohler, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Conti. Close the machine. With 41 aye votes, 42 aye votes, 20 no votes, 3 excused, and 0 absent, Senate Bill 161 is passed. Co-sponsors. Close the machine. Mr. Kohler, please read the title to Senate Bill 169.
Senate Bill 169 by Senator Lambert, also Representative May, concerning information the Office of Information Technology is required to provide to certain members of the General Assembly in connection with its annual budget requests.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move for the adoption of Senate Bill 169 on third reading and final passage.
Seeing no discussion, the question for the House is the passage of Senate Bill 169 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Kohler, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Close the machine. With 62 aye votes, 0 no votes, 3 excused, and 0 absent, Senate Bill 169 is passed. Co-sponsors. Close the machine. Mr. Kohler, please read the title to Senate Bill 92.
Speaker, I think we need to lay that over this.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to lay over Senate Bill 92 to the end of the third reading calendar.
Seeing no objection, Senate Bill 92 will be laid over to the end of the third reading calendar. Mr. Kohler, please read the title to House Bill 1319.
House Bill 1319, Representatives Ferrandino and Holbert, also Senators Lambert and Todd, concerning the creation of an outcomes-based funding model for higher education in connection with making and reducing appropriation.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move for the adoption of House Bill 1319 on third reading and final passage.
Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem. And I'm sorry to do this, but this is probably my last time ever doing this. I ask for permission to offer the dreaded third reading amendment.
The amendment is properly displayed.
Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem. This amendment is just a technical cleanup on second reading. We took out the transfer credit to be 30 hours and said that CCHE would define it. This just makes that same conforming amendment in another part of the bill. Ask for permission to offer this amendment.
Permission granted.
No, you got it. Nice, I wish.
Okay. Mr. Kohler, please open the machines and members, please vote.
I didn't switch it.
You gotta go vote and then call it back.
With 60 aye votes and 0 no votes and 3 excused, the amendment is adopted.
Permission's granted.
The permission is granted.
No.
To the amendment, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem. I move Amendment L28. Ask for an aye vote.
The amendment is displayed. At this point, Mr. Kohler, please open the machines and members prepare to vote.
Okay. Thanks. Sorry about that. Representatives Pabon and Wright. Thank you. Close the machine. With 62 aye votes, 0 no votes, 3 excused, and 0 absent, Amendment L28 is adopted. Seeing no further discussion, the question for the House is the passage of Senate Bill 1319 as amended on third reading and final passage. Mr. Kohler, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representatives Buck, Everett, and Singh. Representative Buck. Close the machine. With 59 aye votes, 3 no votes, 3 excused, and 0 absent, House Bill 1319 is passed. Co-sponsors. Close the machine. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of House Bill 1357.
House Bill 1357, Representative Young, also Senator Aguilar, concerning in-home support services provided in the Medicaid program in connection with making and reducing appropriations.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move for the adoption of House Bill 1357 on third reading and final passage.
Seeing no discussion, the question for the House is the passage of House Bill 1357 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Kohler, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Conti. Close the machine with 48 aye votes, 14 no votes, 3 excused, and 0 absent. House Bill 1357 is passed. Co-sponsors. Close the machine. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of the House Bill 1356.
House Bill 1356 by Representative Foote, also Senator Jones, concerning increase in the Colorado Oil and Gas Commission's penalty authority in connection with making an appropriation.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move for the adoption of House Bill 1356 on third reading and final passage.
Seeing no discussion, the question for the House is the passage of House Bill 1356 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Kohler, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Pabon. Close the machine with 40 aye votes, 22 no votes, 3 excused, and 0 absent. House Bill 1356 is passed. Co-sponsors. Close the machine. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of the House Bill 1373.
House Bill 1373 by Representatives Lebstock and Scott, also Senators Crowder and Zenzinger, concerning individuals who may claim the property tax exemption for qualifying seniors and disabled veterans.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move for the adoption of House Bill 1373 on third reading and final passage.
Seeing no discussion, the question for the House is the passage of House Bill 1373 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Kohler, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representatives Buck, close the machine. With 58 aye votes, 4 no votes, 3 excused, and 0 absent, House Bill 1373 is passed. Co-sponsors. Close the machine. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of the House Bill 1355.
House Bill 1355 by Representatives Kagan and Gardner, also Senators Guzman and King, concerning Department of Corrections reentry initiatives for successful reintegration of adult offenders into the community in connection with making an appropriation.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move for the adoption of House Bill 1355 on third reading and final passage.
Seeing no discussion, the question for the House is the passage of House Bill 1355 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Kohler, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representatives Buck, Hollinghorse, and Lee, and Pabon. Close the machine. With 47 aye votes, 15 no votes, 3 excused, and 0 absent, House Bill 1355 is passed. Co-sponsors. Close the machine. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of the House Bill 1334.
House Bill 1334 by Representatives Hebner and Scott, also Senators John and King, concerning the Petroleum Cleanup and Redevelopment Fund.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move for the adoption of House Bill 1334 on third reading and final passage.
Seeing no discussion, the question for the House is the passage of House Bill 1334 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Kohler, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Buck, close the machine. With 50 aye votes, 12 no votes, 3 excused, and 0 absent, House Bill 1334 is passed. Co-sponsors. Close the machine. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of the Senate Bill 36.
Senate Bill 36 by Senator Baumgartner, also Representatives Garcia and Lawrence, concerning the creation of an emergency medical services license plate for motor vehicles in connection with making an appropriation.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move for the adoption of Senate Bill 36 on third reading and final passage.
See no discussion. This bill will be laid over till May 8th. The question before the House is the passage of Senate Bill 36 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Kohler, please open the machine, and members, please vote no. Close the machine. With 49 aye votes, 13 smart people, 3 excused, and 0 absent, Senate Bill 36 is passed. Co-sponsors. Close the machine. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of the House Bill 1311.
House Bill 1311 by Representatives Garcia and Dorr, also Senators Stedman and Crowder, concerning the credit against the state income tax for the costs incurred in connection with the preservation of historic structures in connection with making and reducing appropriations.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move for the adoption of House Bill 1311 on third reading and final passage.
Seeing no discussion, the question for the House is the passage of House Bill 1311 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Kohler, please open the machine, and members proceed to vote. Representatives Fisher and Scott. Close the machine. With 50 aye votes, 12 no votes, 3 excused, and 0 absent, House Bill 1311 is passed. Co-sponsors. Close the machine. Representative Holbert.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask to remove my name as a co-sponsor.
Seeing no objection, well, I don't think actually you can object. Representative Holbert's name will be removed as a co-sponsor to House Bill 1311. Mr. Kohler, please read the title to Senate Bill 143.
Senate Bill 143 by Senator Stedman, also Representatives May and Giroux, concerning payment of amounts awarded through nursing facility provider reimbursement appeals from Medicaid nursing facility cash fund.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move for the adoption of Senate Bill 143 on third reading and final passage.
Seeing no discussion, the question for the House is the passage of Senate Bill 143 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Kohler, please open the machine, and members proceed to vote. Close the machine. With 54 aye votes, 8 no votes, 3 excused, and 0 absent. Senate Bill 143 is passed. Co-sponsors. Close the machine. Mr. Kohler, please read the title to House Bill 1368.
House Bill 1368 by Representatives May and Giroux, also Senator Hodge, concerning the transition of youth ages 18 through 21 who have intellectual and developmental disabilities to the Adult Program Services for persons with intellectual and developmental disabilities in connection with making and reducing appropriations.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move for the adoption of House Bill 1368 on third reading and final passage.
Seeing no discussion, the question for the House is the passage of House Bill 1368 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Kohler, please open the machine, and members vote. Representatives Buck and Pabon. Close the machine. With 62 aye votes, 0 no votes, 3 excused, and 0 absent, House Bill 1368 is passed. Co-sponsors. Close the machine. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of House Bill 1310.
House Bill 1310 by Representatives Janal and Gardner, also Senators King and Johnston, concerning the provision of breath testing devices to law enforcement agencies.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move for the adoption of 1310 on third reading and final passage.
Seeing no discussion, the question for the House is the passage of House Bill 1310 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Kohler, please open the machine, and members proceed to vote. Representatives Coram, Joshi, and Lebsack. Close the machine. With 55 aye votes, 7 no votes, 3 excused, and 0 absent, House Bill 1310 is passed. Co-sponsors. Close the machine. Mr. Kohler, please read the title to House Bill 1351.
House Bill 1351 by Representatives Norberg and Wright, and also Senators Todd and Herpin, concerning a requirement that the Colorado Office of Economic Development work to maintain the state's positive relationship with the United States Armed Forces.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move for the adoption of 1351 on third reading and final passage.
Seeing no discussion, the question for the House is the passage of House Bill 1351 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Kohler, please open the machine, and members proceed to vote. Close the machine. With 54 aye votes, 8 no votes, 3 excused, and 0 absent, House Bill 1351 is passed. Co-sponsors. Do you want me to announce and see if there's any doubt? Close the machine. Mr. Kohler, please read the title to House Bill 1361.
House Bill 1361 by Representatives McNulty and Singer, also Senators Guzman and King, concerning the authority of the state licensing authority to establish equivalencies for retail marijuana products in connection with making an appropriation.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move for the adoption of House Bill 1361 on third reading and final passage.
Seeing no discussion, a question for the House. The passage of House Bill 1361 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Kohler, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Lebsack and Singh. Close the machine with 62 aye votes, 0 no votes, 3 excused, and 0 absent. House Bill 1361 is passed. Co-sponsors. Close the machine. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of the House Bill 1358.
House Bill 1358 by Representatives Young and Joshi, also Senator Aguilar, concerning continuation of in-home support services in connection with authorizing in-home support services for spinal cord injury waiver pilot program participants.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move for the adoption of House Bill 1358 on third reading and final passage.
Seeing no discussion, the question for the House of the passage of House Bill 1358 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Kohler, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Close the machine. With 55 aye votes, 7 no votes, 3 excused, and 0 absent, House Bill 1358 is passed. Co-sponsors. Close the machine. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of the Senate Bill 154.
Senate Bill 154 by Senator Lambert, also Representative Giroux, concerning funds administered by the Division of Fire Prevention and Control in the Department of Public Safety.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move for the adoption of Senate Bill 154 on third reading and final passage.
Seeing no discussion, a question for the House of the passage of Senate Bill 154 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Kohler, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. There we go. We'll close the machine. With 62 aye votes, 0 no votes, 3 excused, and 0 absent, Senate Bill 154 is passed. Co-sponsors. Close the machine. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of Senate Bill 30.
Senate Bill 30 by Senator Crowder, also Representative Wilson, concerning the fee charges to issue a special license plate to a person with a distinguished flying cross that was awarded for valor in connection with making an appropriation.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move for the adoption of Senate Bill 30 on third reading and final passage.
Seeing no discussion, the question for the House is the second license plate bill of the day. Mr. Kohler, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Close the machine. With 59 aye votes, 3 no votes, 3 excused, and 0 absent, Senate Bill 30 is passed. Co-sponsors. Close the machine. Mr. Kohler, please read the title to Senate Bill 41.
Senate Bill 41 by Senator Herpin, also Representatives Gardner and Swam, concerning the creation of a USS Colorado license plate for motor vehicles in connection with making appropriation.
Representative Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move the adoption of Senate Bill 41 on third reading and final passage.
Please continue, Representative Gardner.
Thank you. There's so much controversy, and some prominent, well, somewhat prominent members of this body are opposed to license plates. And I've been asked over and over again, what's this deal about a submarine license plate? Ron, would you show once again? This is what a submarine license plate looks like. Seriously, members, what is this all about? Now that I have your attention, the Navy is commissioning in 2017 an attack submarine as the USS Colorado. The last Navy ship named for Colorado was the battleship Colorado, which was decommissioned in 1947. It is an honor to have a ship named for our state, and the purpose of the license plate is to raise awareness and support and increase the connection between the citizens of our state and our elected officials and the United States Navy and this ship, that in the hopes that we would have an affinity and an adoption of of the USS Colorado. And so license plates, while we wonder at the number of them, they do serve purposes many times, and this one will serve to create some enthusiasm and affinity for the USS Colorado and the connection between our state and this naval vessel, which is going to be like the 21st century all over again in an attack submarine. So thank you for your support.
Representative Wyden.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And on behalf of the Naval Reserve Command at Buckley Air Force Base, I urge a yes vote. Thank you.
Seeing no discussion, the question for the further discussion, the question for the House is the passage of House Bill 41 on third reading and final passage. You've convinced me to still vote no. Mr. Kohler, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Close the machine with 55 aye votes, 7 no votes, 3 excused, and 0 absent. Senate Bill 41 is passed. Close the machine. I mean, co-sponsors. Did you do co-sponsors?
I did.
And you closed the machine right away? That's my fault. I didn't mean to do that. Mr. Kohler, let's do Okay, open the machine for co-sponsors. If anyone wants to co-sponsor it. I'll be nice. Now we can close the machine. As always, the license plate bill passes. The Speaker doesn't always get his way. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of the Senate Bill 51.
Senate Bill 51 by Senator Tocktrop, also Representative Singh, concerning access to records relating to the adoption of children in connection with making an appropriation.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move for the adoption of Senate Bill 51 on third reading and final passage.
Seeing no discussion, the question for the House is the passage of Senate Bill 51 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Kohler, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representatives Gardner and Humphrey. Close the machine with 62 aye votes, 0 no votes, 3 excused, and 0 absent. Senate Bill 51 is passed. Co-sponsors. Close the machine. Mr. Kohler, please read the title to House Bill 1044.
House Bill 1044 by Representative Dorr, also Senator Tocktrop, concerning consequences for a parolee who tampers with an electronic monitoring device that the parolee is required to wear as a condition of parole.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move for the adoption of House Bill 1044 on third reading and final passage.
Seeing no discussion, the question for the House is the passage of House Bill 1044 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Kohler, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Close the machine with 62 aye votes, 0 no votes, 3 excused, and 0 absent. House Bill 1044 is passed. Co-sponsors. Close the machine. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of the House Bill 1371.
House Bill 1371 by Representative Young, also Senator Grantham, concerning property taxation of oil and gas leaseholds and lands in connection with specifying that the wellhead is the point of valuation and taxation for such leaseholds and lands.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move for the adoption of House Bill 1371 on third reading and final passage.
Seeing no discussion, the question for the House is the passage of House Bill 1371 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Kohler, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representatives Conti, Dorr, and Humphrey. Close the machine. With 60 aye votes, 2 no votes, 3 excused, and 0 absent, House Bill 1371 is passed. Co-sponsors. Close the machine. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of the House Bill 1353.
House Bill 1353 by Representative Gardner, also Senator Johnston, concerning powers of appointment.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move for the adoption of House Bill 1353 on third reading and final passage.
Seeing no discussion, the question for the House is the passage of House Bill 1353 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Kohler, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Close the machine. With 62 aye votes, 0 no votes, 3 excused, and 0 absent, House Bill 1353 is passed. Co-sponsors. Close the machine. Mr. Kohler, please read the title to House Bill 1363.
House Bill 1363 by Representative Gardner, also Senator Roberts, concerning the non-substantive revision of statutes in Colorado Revised Statutes as amended in connection with amending and repealing obsolete, imperfect, and inoperative law to preserve the legislative intent, effect, and meaning of the law.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move for the adoption of House Bill 1363 on third reading and final passage.
Seeing no discussion, the question for the House is the passage of House Bill 1363 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Kohler, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Scott, close the machine. With 62 aye votes, 0 no votes, 3 excused, and 0 absent, House Bill 1363 is passed. Co-sponsors. Close the machine. Mr. Kohler, please read the title to House Bill 1359.
House Bill 1359 by Representative Janal, also Senator Aguilar, concerning medication synchronization for patients who are prescribed multiple medications.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move for the adoption of House Bill 1359 on third reading and final passage.
Seeing no discussion, the question for the House is the passage of House Bill 1359 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Kohler, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representatives close the machine. With 58 aye votes, 4 no votes, 3 excused, and 0 absent, House Bill 1359 is passed. Co-sponsors. Close the machine. Mr. Kohler, please read the title to House Bill 1366.
House Bill 1366 by Representative Singer and McNulty, also Senators Johnson and King, concerning reasonable restrictions on the sale of edible retail marijuana products.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move for the adoption of House Bill 1366 on third reading and final passage.
Seeing no discussion, the question for the House is the passage of House Bill 1366 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Kohler, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Rosenthal. Close the machine. With 62 aye votes, 0 no votes, 3 excused, and 0 absent, House Bill 1366 is passed. Co-sponsors. Close the machine. We'll proceed to our next order of business, special order, second reading of bills. Representative Lebsack.
Mr. Speaker, I move the House now resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole for consideration of general orders.
How about special orders? Special orders. Seeing no objection, the House will resolve itself in the Committee of the Whole for consideration of special orders. Representative Lebsack will take the chair.
The committee will come to order. With your unanimous consent, the bills will be read by title unless there is request for reading of a bill at length. Committee amendments will not be read unless requested, as they are printed and in your bill folders. Floor amendments will be shown on the screen and not read unless requested. Bills will be laid over upon motion of the Majority Leader, and the coat rule is relaxed. Madam Majority Leader. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of House Bill 1362.
House Bill 1362 by Representative Moreno concerning great-grandparent visitation with great-grandchildren.
Representative Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move House Bill 1362. There is no committee report.
To the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, it's a pleasure to bring to you House Bill 1362. It passed out of committee unanimously. I know Representative Wilson couldn't believe it, but it is as simple as just adding great-grandparents to our visitation statute. A couple of constituents of mine ran into this issue. They came and shared their story, and the committee voted to pass it unanimously. I would ask for your aye vote as well.
Seeing no other discussion, the question before us is the passage of House Bill 1362. All of those in favor say aye. Aye. Those in favor, no. House Bill 1362 passes. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of Senate Bill 49.
Senate Bill 49 by Senator Heath, also Representative Priola, concerning endangering public utility transmission in connection with making appropriation.
Representative Priola.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Senate Bill 49. There is no committee report.
To the bill.
Members, this is a good public safety bill out of the Middlesex Task Force. Ask for an aye vote.
Any discussion? Seeing none. The question before us is the passage of Senate Bill 49. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. Senate Bill 49 passes. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move the committee rise and report.
Seeing no objection, the committee will rise and report.
The House will come back to order. Mr. Kohler, please read the report of the Committee of the Whole.
Mr. Speaker, Committee of the Whole begs leave to report under consideration following attached bills being second reading thereof and makes following recommendations thereon. House Bill 1362 passed on second reading in order gross place on counter for third and final passage. Senate Bill 49 passed on second reading in order revised place on counter for third and final passage.
That was really quick. I didn't even get time to get a coffee. Representative Lebsack.
Speaker, I move the House adopt the report of the Committee of the Whole.
You've heard the motion. There are no amendments at the desk. Mr. Kohler, please open the machine and members proceed to vote on adoption of the report of the Committee of the Whole. Representatives Fields, Kagan, Kraftart, May, Priola, and Szabo. Close the machine. 62 aye votes, 0 no votes, 3 excused, and 0 absent. The report of the committee whole is adopted. Announcements and introductions. Representative Garcia.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, I would ask you to join me in welcoming Miss Leslie Reindaler off to the side here, who was designated a 2014 Star of Life and recently received that award. It's a national award that calls to light her compassion and dedication to patient care as a paramedic, so we congratulate you, Leslie.
Representative Lebsack. Representative Garcia.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, with that being said, I would also like to urge my colleagues to join us today for the CPR training that's going to be held in HCR 107. Lunch will be provided.
Mr. Assistant Majority, no. Representative Sane.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I would like to introduce members of Colorado's Adoption Triad who are over here to your right, who extend their thanks for your unanimous vote today on SB 51 and on 1042 earlier. This is a very important, both these bills. They've been trying to get passed for the last 18 years, giving these folks equal civil rights to their own information and to be able to access that information like any other citizen. This is a tremendous day for them, so if you extend their thanks to you and if you can recognize them as well, I'd appreciate it.
Representative Mitch Bush.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to welcome a group from Eagle County who has already left the chamber to go over to some other chamber somewhere. But this group is the Family Leadership Training Institute. Every year they have a training leadership class. And these folks' projects, they do projects every year, really embody what we heard this morning, both in the prayer and in the remarks of our former governors. They focus on public service, and they do wonderful projects that focus on everything from creating seed gardens to preschool care to creating business training programs for young people. So let's give them a hand even though they're somewhere else.
Representative Rosenthal.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Live long and prosper. So today we have our Star Trek caucus. We have 3 visitors from the aerospace industry, somebody from the Space Foundation down in Colorado Springs. Somebody works for Astra in Boulder, and they do space weather. And then somebody from Star Trek Communicator Magazine. And this is at 3 o'clock at the Old Supreme Court Chamber. We'll have pizza, and I hope you can rendezvous with us at the Delta Quadrant.
God, I should fine you just for that. But I won't. Representative Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You all have on your desk an announcement for the Sportsman's Caucus Day at the Capitol. We're trying to get a visitor from Roswell here, too, for that, for Representative Rosenthal. Some of you that were in the chamber before I took over the chairmanship of this, remember when the Sportsman's Day at the Capitol included all the booths, they had some laser shooting things and so on and so forth. That's what's coming. So check it out. There's information on both sides of that. It will be Wednesday from 8 in the morning until 3 in the afternoon. It's sponsored by the Sportsman's Caucus, and the Rural Caucus will be helping out with that. And the world-famous hot dogs are coming back for lunch that day, so don't miss out. Thank you.
Representative Primavera.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Garcia did a fine job announcing the CPR training, but failed to mention that it's open to aides and interns and anyone in the Capitol that would like to take it.
Representative Singer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Colorado Children's Caucus will be meeting this morning or this afternoon at 12 o'clock up in the Senate committee rooms. We'll be discussing a number of the issues relating to transparency and accountability and providing a neutral oversight mechanism to make sure that our kids are better protected, and lunch should be provided.
Representative Ryan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. I just wanted to shout out to Morachick Middle School students who were here earlier and were so impressed that they got to see 3 governors speak. It was a very unique moment for them. And also members of the State Veterans and Military Affairs Committee. We will be laying over House Bill 1343 to Wednesday And we will be hearing House Joint Resolution 1016 and House Concurrent Resolution 1002 at 1:30 today in LSB.
Representative Buckner.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I, too, would like to welcome Morachek to the chamber. I'm glad that they had an opportunity to see the earlier resolution and the governor speak. I also want to welcome Calvary Christian Academy to the chamber. I'm not certain that they're still here, but if they are, I'd like for us to acknowledge them and welcome them to the chamber.
Representative Fisher.
Members of the House Agriculture, Livestock, and Natural Resources Committee, listen up. This is important. We will not be holding our committee hearing today. We had one bill up on the calendar which has been laid over. Senate Bill 23 will be laid over until further notice. So no committee meeting this afternoon. Do, however, plan to attend our joint House and Senate Ag Committee meeting at 8 o'clock on Wednesday morning, in which we will discuss hunter and angler recruitment policies from the Division of Parks and Wildlife. Thanks.
Representative Sonnenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And members, many of you have seen the paper flying around or floating around that everybody's signing, that the Speaker and I are asking for your signature on as a note to send to the executive branch. If you would like to sign that note, and we would really like you to, it's up here at Ron's desk. Just please feel free to sign that note, and we'll get that taken care of to the governor's office. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Sonnenberg. I think the governor's office would appreciate everyone's signature on that note. Representative Kraft-Tharp.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, please join me in welcoming the Colorado Technical Institute here today, visiting us at the Capitol, and my sister-in-law Nancy from Vancouver, Washington.
Representative Joshi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and member. I would like to welcome the Colorado Springs Charter Academy students. They were here earlier. I don't think they are here now. But they also had a chance to see all the governors this morning, too. So thank you.
Representative Hamner.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members of the Education Committee, no, you're not seeing things in front of your eyes. We do have 10 bills this afternoon, so please be ready to start right at 1:30 and bring lots of snacks, and we'll see you in our usual place.
Representative Primavera.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. For members of Public Health and Human Services Committee, we will not be hearing Senate Bill 13 tomorrow. We'll move it till next Tuesday.
Any further announcements or introductions? Seeing none, Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move the House stand in recess until 1 p.m. this afternoon, at which point we will adjourn until 9 a.m. tomorrow morning.
Seeing no objection, the House will stand in recess until 1 p.m. this afternoon. We'll see you back tomorrow morning at 9 a.m.